If you told me they were thinking about taking out the rivers of America and the island, I'd be like, no, they're not. They can't do that. Turns out they can, and they will, and they are. What is Disney thinking on removing the rivers of America from the Magic Kingdom? This was exactly my first reaction, like so many of you. But then I came to Walt Disney World, and I spent a day on the island, and I spent an afternoon riding the Liberty Belle, and now I'm not so sure. I'm starting to come around and understand what Disney is thinking, and I believe I can justify it. Not a popular opinion, this I know. And I wouldn't even have believed this myself until I came here and I put in the time and did one of the most important things when it comes to design. I kept an open mind. That might be a step too much for most folks in the community, but I think if you keep an open mind and stick with me here, you might be able to see it at least from a different perspective than your own. And who knows, maybe that'll soften the blow the next time you come here and the rivers of America is sadly gone. Brickey here on location, breaking down the transformation of Rivers of America over to a Cars Land inside of the Magic Kingdom, giving you a designer's perspective on how this will work and what I think the changes mean. So something we can just get out of the way right off the top. I am not a Disney shill. I have been completely critical when I need to be, but here's the thing. I'm never going to be critical just because that's what the community wants, and I'm never at the same time going to praise Disney because that's what they want. This channel is all about my perspectives on the park through the eyes of a designer who has worked with Disney several times. So I'm not auditioning for a job. I've worked for the company, and I'm not looking to get on the media list. I have enough money to do whatever I want to do at Disney parks, and that keeps me honest. And that is definitely not meant to be a flex. It's just I can do what I want to do inside the parks, and I planned on always funding it myself. Media list is not anything that I'm auditioning for. It sounds way too stressful to even have in my life, so I'm not interested. With that being said, let's get into today's video. At D23, when I was sitting inside of the Honda Center and I saw that they were actually building a Cars Land at Magic Kingdom, something that Braden over at Mickey Views had been sort of hinting at for a while, that he had some inside sources, I just kept saying, please don't build a Cars Land in the Magic Kingdom, because like many folks, Braden included, we thought they were going to do a replication of what's already at Disney's California Adventure, which I am a very strong believer that every park should have a couple of major attractions that are unique to that park. And replicating Radiator Springs at DCA, I thought was a horrible idea, even though I was intrigued and did believe that it would look good on the backside of Big Thunder Mountain. So when we got our announcement and I saw they were building a racers inside of this park, but to a different theme, I was so excited. Radiator Racers inside of DCA is my favorite ride inside of that park. And I think Radiator Springs is one of the best lands that Disney has ever designed. And why do I come to Walt Disney World so much when Disneyland is just 12 miles down the street from my house? Well, because it's more of what I love. And Radiator Racers showing up here was going to be more of what I love. To the point where I ranked this very high on my list of top 13 announcements from D23. You can check that video out over here. But like so many of you, my opinion quickly soured when I realized that it wasn't behind Big Thunder Mountain, but it was instead taking over Tom Sawyer Island. This was not what I wanted. And so after the announcement, I was so excited that I had planned ahead, already had a flight coming out here to cover all the different Horizons projects that I'm going to cover from cancellation to completion. And after flying a red eye out to Orlando, I came straight to Tom Sawyer Island and I was going to rip Disney a new one. And then that is where this story starts to change, because I had a change of heart. So when we all saw that concept artwork, it just was jarring. Like, how could a Disney park ever remove a Rivers of America? It's one of the signature design aesthetics of the original Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom, my home park, Disneyland, and we've seen it replicated here, Japan, and in Paris. Maybe nobody does it better than Paris, though. Just seeing the walking path where the rivers are currently flowing, it was not anything that I don't think any of us were anticipating to see. And then there's the whole Cars. Is this all worthy for Cars? And then there was a brilliant map that somebody made that showed all the room where they had to build a Cars Land. And then a little red dot of where they chose to build Cars Land. And it made me laugh so hard because it's like, guys, there's no shortage of space at Walt Disney World. We're not talking about Anaheim, where accidentally a major city sprouted up around the park. Isn't scale kind of the beauty and charm of this place? I mean, it is massive. And after visiting Disneyland over 700, 800 times and coming here for the first time, you start to realize like, oh, I know why they made all these design decisions, because I know everything they were trying to correct back home at Disneyland. So it just seemed like a completely wild idea. You have all this extra land. Why, oh, why the island? And I'm going to be making a separate video where I compare the concept art to where we're at right now, like literally going around the entire land, doing some mock-ups, kind of giving you an A-B contrast on what here's today and what's coming. That will be coming later. That's going to take a decent amount of time, but something that I feel like I'm uniquely qualified for by being the design guy. So if that video sounds intriguing to you, perfect time to subscribe to Hey Brickey. That helps me keep making 3 quality videos every week, and also doing crazy things like coming out here to create this New Horizons series, where, as I already said, we're going to follow all these projects to cancellation or completion. Make sure you subscribe to Hey Brickey to keep going on this journey with me. And by all means, it was no accident that they waited till the Monday morning after everybody had gone home and after D23 was officially over to drop this hammer on the community. Because had they said this inside the Honda Center, JD would have got booed right off the stage. And the way I see it, that was an audition to take over the Walt Disney Corporation, not something he would have wanted to have happened. However, leadership means being a leader and making tough decisions. And even though the community is so rightfully so angry over this one, I mean, people are so fired up and I love it. The best things about D23s is it fires up the community and it gets everybody passionately talking about what's next. And the SimCity nature of the Disney parks is what attracted me to all of this in the first place. Well, that and the fact that the community treats Disney like it's a sport. And there's this team and that team, and I love everybody in between. Because that outrage of passion, I just love seeing people get all fired up, share their opinions, share their memories, and talk about what matters most to them, and most importantly, what they want for the future of their ideal version of Magic Kingdom. And look, I hear you loud and clear, and I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. In fact, I'm here to tell you you're absolutely right. If you are outraged about the river going away, that is well within your love of this place, because it is an absolute crazy decision. But I can see it from a design perspective, and most importantly, from a business perspective. But you have to be realistic. At what cost do you keep those vibes? Because after spending a day out on the island, I started to realize there is way more to this story, and it does actually make sense. Because friends, that island is in very, very rough shape. It needs a ton of work. And you know what? As cool as it is far from being Tom Sawyer Island back home at Disneyland. It lacks the depth, the charm, the kinetic energy, and the history that Tom Sawyer Island back home at Disneyland provides. It is beyond a country mile from being ADA compliant, and pretty much doesn't feel safe whatsoever. And because Walt Disney World has pretty much already given up on the river, there's just not the same kinetic energy. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great way to escape, a great way to get away, and the vibes out there are outstanding. But from a design perspective, it could be much better. From a financial perspective, it makes little to no sense. The entire time I was out there, I looked around at every kid and every family and thought to myself, would they rather be riding a Cars ride or be inside of a Cars attraction? Would that have made them have more fun, create bigger memories? Hit a post there. Because I firsthand see weekly the fun that people have in Radiator Springs at DCA, and I also see the fun that people have at Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland. That is not the same. Much like my opinions on Autopia back home and the begging for the removal of Autopia back home, if you don't visit the island or step onto the river, you have essentially ignored a complete land worth of entertainment for the day. And if you don't spend a nickel here, that is a complete land that you have not experienced in by buying a water, by buying lunch, by buying dinner, or buying that sweet, sweet popcorn bucket. And don't get me wrong, vibes are important, but at what cost? And you have a park that has so many other vibe spots. Compounded with, this is the most busiest theme park on planet Earth. Therefore, every single piece of it needs to be fully used to keep the audiences moving and for you to have an efficient day at the Magic Kingdom. And it is so far away in a distant, distant last place from the other Tom Sawyer Islands or Disney Islands that exist. When I was out there, I looked around, I judged the folks all around me and what I was seeing, and I said, you know what? This is actually starting to make sense. And then there's the Liberty Belle. I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky, on the banks of the Ohio River, hearing the Belle of Louisville go by every Kentucky Derby, watching the Delta Queen coming down from Cincinnati and racing the Belle of Louisville for the slowest 2 hours in sports is my childhood. Standing on the strong and sturdy brown banks of the Ohio River, cheering the boats go by, it is a memory that is forever etched inside my heart. The Mark Twain back home at Disneyland is my favorite attraction. I love the Mark Twain. And I say all of this to say, friends, the Liberty Belle is no Mark Twain. It's not even close. That boat is in rough, rough shape. And it looks like a theme park ride of yesteryear, not a steamboat that is part museum piece, part theme park piece, but complete nostalgia piece. You can tell that they have had this plan for a while because the Liberty Belle is currently in very, very rough shape. When we were pulling into port, I literally thought the steam engine was going to explode. It was so loud and smoke was just coming out of it everywhere. Well, not smoke, it was steam. But that boat is in rough shape currently. But aside from its current condition, it just lacks the overall TLC and love that the Mark Twain has. The Mark Twain is Walt's boat. The TLC and extra care that has been given to the Mark Twain in every single corner it shows. The finishes of the wood, the trim on the boat, the windows, the lights, the history of that boat. The fact that Louis Armstrong performed on its deck, as well as Walt and Lillian had their anniversary there just days before Walt's crazy idea of Disneyland would come true. And when I come to Walt Disney World, I pride myself not making videos where I compare and contrast. This is better here, this is better there. It's more of what I love, and I have fallen in love with all the things that make this park different than my park back home. In this rare instance, I am going to do a compare and contrast because the difference between the two vessels is huge. And there is no doubt in my mind that more guests are gonna have better memories, or I don't know if they necessarily would be better, but more adventurous memories riding a Cars Radiator Racers type ride that takes us on an off-track adventure, racing around a mountain. After all, this will be a complete interior land. There will be no big show building here. Every little square foot is going to have to be meticulous in its design and its operation to make all of this work. This is going to be no easy task. It's not Disney being cheap, it's Disney going hard. And then lastly, let's talk the river. This river is in rough, rough shape. I mean, you can just look at it and tell that it's not a healthy body of water along the shoreline. It looks all corroded and not like someplace you would want to accidentally fall into. The difference between the rivers of America back home and this one is once again night and day. This has not been taken care of. It's overgrown, it's swampy, there's just plant life coming out of it everywhere. But on the upside, I did see a family of turtles swimming together, which was pretty cool. Simply put, if there was a time to save these attractions, that time has long passed. And Disney has let all of this get to a moment where I doubt it could easily be saved. Which then gets into a debate, would you save something related to Tom Sawyer and Mark Twain and the Liberty Belle? Just sort of a forgotten era that today's audiences, just to put it bluntly, don't really care about. If you're to give them the option of that, or to be able to see Mater and Lightning McQueen and go on a Cars race and walk through a Cars land, I think that's what most fans would pick. And I'm not going to argue with them, because I think it will be extremely popular. It will no doubt add a lot of capacity to this park, which is the goal, right? This is the busiest theme park on planet Earth. And what comes along with that is the constant need to be able to keep your audiences entertained, to keep them coming back. And when they're here, to have enough room for them to get into all the adventures so they felt like they got their day's worth. And this goes along with all of those objectives. And for folks that complain, well, the park's too busy, all you do there is wait in lines. You can't complain about wait in lines and complain about them converting unused space into new attractions. Like, those two arguments go against each other. Putting something this big in the core of this area of Frontierland will 100% create so much more capacity, bring in more people, and reduce the stress all around this park. And it will also make it to where it's no longer a dead end. You'll be able to loop all around. That crowd flow alone will make the park flow so much better. Trust me, once Galaxy's Edge came to Disneyland and you could finally completely walk around the outer perimeter of Disneyland, it changed the flow of our park severely. This, if anything else, is going to change the flow of Magic Kingdom in a way you probably can't even imagine. And then there's the Epic Universe sort of thing that's going on, right? Disney needs to find a clever way to bring people back to Magic Kingdom and make sure this park stays a perennial favorite. Even though mentally it feels more like a Disney Hollywood Studios IP to me because of relating it to DCA, it's multi-generational. This is something that people will enjoy for decades and decades to come. Cars is not going anywhere. So if you love the magic, the hard fact is the magic costs money. This makes no money. It only costs money. But what's coming is going to make a ton of money, tenfold, time and time again. So the ugly part that nobody likes to talk about, the amount of lightning lanes, mobile food orders, like, this thing financially is going to crush compared to something right now that doesn't sell any tickets, doesn't make any money, and it's not the core reason why 99.99999% of people come to Magic Kingdom. Cars Land back home, it is an outstanding money maker, and it doesn't ruin the vibes. You can go in there and chill around and watch them do Shaboom, which is one of the greatest little secret things at DCA. Like, there is so much to do in Cars Land, and spending money is only one of the options. I go in there all the time, and the most I buy is a bottle of water. I take that back. Cone queso is sick. I buy a lot of cone queso and the ice cream in the cone. So, okay, I do spend a little bit of snack money there. Even though business-wise it's a sure winner, doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. And I know that it doesn't mean that you have to like it. I would argue that there was probably a better solution, a better IP, and possibly a way to save the river. But when you don't take care of your stuff and you let it fall apart, this is the situation that you get into. Just because it makes sense on paper doesn't mean that it makes it feel right. And it doesn't mean that it's not going to be missed. The breathtaking views from the rivers of America are unmatched. And what it does is it creates negative space. Never underestimate the value and power of negative space inside of your designs. The air conditioning effect of wind hitting the water and cooling everybody down that walks along the docks, that cannot be underestimated. The heat out here is oppressive. This river does such a great job of keeping everybody as cool as possible all around it. It's going to be even hotter once this new attraction shows up and all of this is removed. That to me is kind of the hardest part to wrap my brain around. Like, why wouldn't they fight to save this? But I guess it gets to, at what cost? At what cost are those things no longer worth their value and the footprint that they take up in the world's busiest theme park? That's the equation here that my heart and my brain are kind of going back and forth with. And as I looked at everything and saw its current shape, the brain started to beat the heart. And Disney is moving fast on this one. They said people would have about 5 more months to get to say goodbye to the Rivers of America, Tom Sawyer Island, and the Liberty Belle. They are moving quickly on this one because they know, Epic Universe opens up next year, 2025. It will have 3 or 4 years of being the shiny new thing inside of Orlando, and there's really no reason to even try to compete with it in those years. Let them have that moment. But once people have been there, the newness is worn off. A great way to remind people how amazing the Magic Kingdom is to show up with a fully developed Cars Land right behind me. A renovation like nobody has ever seen before, which is part of the scariness of this. If they're ready to give up the river, what else is on the chopping block? Is anything here other than the Main Street train station, Main Street and Sleeping Beauty Castle protected? Like, is Liberty Square next? God, I hope not. And I think that does kind of set up in this particular park, because of its high volume and high demand. I don't know if anything should be considered sacred anymore, because what is more sacred than this? And logistically, when it made sense for it to go, it's gone, baby. And as both a theme park fan and a designer, I cannot even express how much I'm going to miss this. Like, it's so beautiful, and it just adds that vibe, that nostalgia that is Magic Kingdom, because it is a castle park, and the castle parks feel different than all the other parks. But if I'm being honest, I come out here now about 4 or 5 times a year for the channel. I don't always go on the island. I don't always go on Liberty Belle. It is partial because it has restricted hours. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I do always stop and enjoy the view. And that part I'm pretty sad about, and I'm going to miss. So progress sometimes is bittersweet. And I'll just say this, as the vibes guy and as the design guy, they better bring their A game in a way we've never seen before, because that's what the stakes are on this particular project. If it's not beyond perfect, if it's not like beyond exceptional, this will be considered a massive and huge failure, probably unlike nothing we've seen before, and particularly at the Magic Kingdom. The stakes are high, and your outrage is not wrong. I celebrate it. This puts us in the ultimate position of, will this project be worth it? Will I be able to stand somewhere around where I'm at right now in 4 or 5 years and say, this made Magic Kingdom better? I don't know. I can't promise that. Fingers crossed. I hope that it makes things better. I'm not rooting for a place I love to fail, but it is a tall task that lies ahead for Disney's management and Walt Disney Imagineering, and I really hope that they're up to the task. We will see if this makes it better, and we'll also see what's next on the chopping block. Because if the river can go, anything can go. I guess the way to perfectly describe this, what is the value of nostalgia? What kind of price tag can you put on nostalgia? And Disney obviously has. And look, I'm sure I haven't changed your mind, and I'm sure some of you now hate me. But hopefully, if you've made it this far in the video, you've at least thought about this from a couple of different perspectives. And that's exactly why I'm here, to give you the designer's eye and the artist eye, the heart and the art of the parks. And part of being a professional artist and a commercial artist is you have to deal with clients, you have to deal with budgets, you have to deal with realities. If you want to be somebody that doesn't have to deal with any of those things, you're more than welcome to be a gallerist and just make paintings for the sake of making paintings. But if you do any form of commercial design or commercial art, there is a thing called the real world, money and clients that make it all happen. And I have the ability from decades of experience to break down why clients make some of the dumbest decisions and how we end up in situations just like this. So if anything, I hope I've given you a little bit of perspective. And don't worry, I have shot the island from every possible angle. Full documentary coming about Tom Sawyer Island here at the Magic Kingdom, back home at Disneyland as well. So make sure you're subscribed, because I go all out on my documentaries, and what I got planned for this one, I think is very special. One thing that Disney's done in the past is definitely given up on attractions, I think way too early. Watch this video right here about the Disneyland Skyway, which I'm gonna say is one of the worst decisions that Disney has ever made. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hearing out my opinions. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your opinions below. Just maybe try to show me the same politeness that I've showed you in your opinions. We're all friends here.